Welcome back to Unaware Commentary, the place for Pokemon TCG battle narration that doesn't care about the stats.
Welcome back, trainers, to another exciting Pokemon TCG battle narration. We are catching up with our players here, getting set up. We are going to have our player 2 on the right with the Meowth mat, player 1 on the left, which looks like a Mage's battle mat. Taking a look at our opening hands here, looking for a basic Pokemon to start in the active. Does look like our player 2 has found one. Looking kind of briefly at that player 1's hand, it did look like there was at least a Teal Mask Pokemon and a couple Lillie's Clefairy in the hand, as well as a Latias EX. Lots of options to choose for that active Pokemon. Looks like we're going to be setting one in the active, two on the bench, and we'll get started with this game. Player 2 starting that Pheasantipity EX in the active. Player 1 starting a Lillie's Clefairy EX in the active. Would like to draw for turn a Lillie's Determination, or draw for turn is going to be that area 0 Underdepths, that Lillie's Determination being in the initial opening hand. We're going to see the game start off with an Ultra Ball, discarding a Lillie's Clefairy and a Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking. Going into the deck to find what resource we may want to utilize on this turn 1. Looks like likely the Kangaskhan variant of a Ogerpon EX deck here, so going to be unlikely to play a supporter on turn 1, as there are only very special supporters that can be played there. Using that Skyliner ability to put that make a Kangaskhan EX in the active, drawing 2 cards with Run Aaron, and then activating the Teal Dance ability on that bench Teal Mask Ogerpon, attaching a Grass Energy from the hand and drawing a card from the top of the deck. Pass back over to our player 2 here, who will start off the game with a Buddy Poffin, searching the deck for 2 basic Pokemon with 70 or less HP, and those will find their way onto the bench. It does look like we are going to be seeing a matchup featuring the Alakazam Dunsparce deck. We'll also see a Dawn going into the deck, finding a basic Stage 1 and Stage 2 Pokemon of choice. Likely going to be another Abra, maybe a Dunsparce for next turn, and an Alakazam. It is just going to be one member of the Alakazam line each, an Abra, a Kadabra, and an Alakazam, finding their way to the hand. Determining if we're going to be going back into the deck is going to be a Pokepad, looking for a non-Rulebox Pokemon to add to the hand. Pokepad, a great item card for being able to search out some of these Pokemon and get set up, or even some evolutions in the later game. It's just going to be another Abra finding its way to the bench. Those Abra having low HP, but a little bit less relevant in a matchup like this, unless we see the appearance of a Wellspring Mask Ogerpon. We'll see the attachment to the Pheasantipity and a retreat to get that 2 prize liability out of the active. See an energy switch to start off the turn, moving that Grass Energy from the Teal Mask Pokemon to the Lillie's Clefairy EX on the bench. We do see that Lillie's Determination in the hand, determining if we want to put the Stadium in play, that Area 0 Underdepths, expanding our player 1's bench out to 8 Pokemon, as they have a Terra Pokemon in play, making sure that E-Switch did make its way to the discard pile. It's important that both players are involved in keeping the board state correct, so good catch by our player 2 to be sure that that energy switch got to where it needed to be. Looks like we're going to be drawing 8 cards off of this Lillie's Determination, as no prizes have been taken. Lillie's Determination has a secondary clause that had a prize been taken already by our player 1, it would only draw up to 6 cards. Right now we're going to be looking at 8 fresh resources to potentially work with, and to spread out this bench and start trying to get an attack off with that Lillie's Clefairy EX. See a Teal Dance from that Teal Mask Pokemon on the bench, attaching up a Grass Energy from the hand, and a draw. Looking like a handful of Meowths and Kangaskhan's, and another Lillie's Clefairy EX hitting the bench. Looking like a Lillie's Clefairy focused build here, trying to determine if we may have a secondary attachment. Nope, going to just pass back over to our player 2 here, who will draw for the turn evolve a Kadabra with the Psychic Draw ability, drawing 2 cards when Kadabra is evolved from the hand. Second Kadabra hitting the bench, drawing of 2 more cards. See the evolution of a Dunsparce onto the bench Dunsparce in a runaway draw, allowing our player to draw 3 cards, and then the Dunsparce shuffling himself back into the deck, potentially going to be going into the deck here, so not quite shuffling yet before we look to maybe draw some more cards. Looks like we're considering a Dawn here. Go find some more resources, maybe another Kadabra, get another Dunsparce set up on the bench. This Alakazam build without a lot of fear of having its bench being sniped in this matchup, as there isn't a clear threat on board. Not going to be an issue of potentially setting back up that Dunsparce, potentially looking for a rare candy to get into Alakazam and start attacking with that powerful hand ability this turn, as well as putting the Dunsparce in the hand does increase our player's hand size, which is the primary function for increasing damage in this Alakazam deck. We do see attachment of a telepathic energy, with that being attached to a psychic type, allows for the searching of 2 basic psychic Pokemon from the deck. Will just be 1 Abra to fill up the bench there, as our player 2 does not have a Terra Pokemon in play, so does not have the expanded bench. Playing of a Battle Cage Stadium, preventing the putting of damage counters onto benched Pokemon, and just a pass it back over, no rare candy to be able to get that attack off, but that energy on the bench Kadabra probably setting up for an attack next turn, unless our hand is disrupted here by maybe a Judge. We're just going to see a Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking as the supporter choice for turn, the searching up of 2 cards in the deck and 2 being placed onto the top. We did see the placing of the Area 0 Underdepths bumping the Battle Cage, expanding the bench of our player 1 out to 8 Pokemon, because there is still that Tier Mask Pokemon in play. Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking has a unique interaction with some of our card draw effects throughout the format, things like Teal Mask Ogerpon and Mega Kangaskhan EX with that Run Errand ability, where they are able to cherry pick those cards up onto the top of the deck and then draw them like we see here. 2 cards onto the top, drawn from the Kangaskhan, looked like a Telepathic Energy and a Lily's Pearl going to the hand. Lily's Pearl, a unique item card that when attached to Lily's Clefairy EX, should it be knocked out by damage from an attack, it will give up 1 less prize card. The attaching of the Telepathic Energy to the Lily's Clefairy EX on the bench, allowing for the searching up of 2 Psychic Pokemon to expand out that bench, potentially increase our damage here. Trying to see potentially failing that search and just attaching the energy for turn, as when Telepathic Energy is attached to a Pokemon, it does provide Psychic Energy to fulfill attack cost, like that Full Moon Rondo on that Lily's Clefairy EX. Our player 2 just taking a look at that Lily's Pearl, a little bit of a rarer tool card. We did see a Teal Dance with a energy being attached to that Teal Mask Ogerpon and Energy Switch, moving that energy over to the Lily's Clefairy EX. Energy acceleration, not a problem for our player 1 right now. A big Full Moon Rondo, plenty to knock out that Abra with just 50 HP and a prize card being taken. Over to our player 2, who is drawn for the turn. Taking a look at that large hand, we will see the playing of an Alakazam from the hand, a Psychic Draw, drawing 3 cards from the top of the deck as it was evolved from the hand. The pumping of the Stadium, back into that Battle Cage we go. The evolution of a Dunsparce on the bench, a Flip the Script from Pheasantipity, as there was a knockout last turn. Pheasantipiti's Flip the Script ability is active, allowing for the drawing of 3 cards. A Dawn coming from our player 2, again looking for a basic, a stage 1 and a stage 2, potentially looking for an Alakazam, a establishment of another Dunsparce, and a Kadabra. Going to see a full bench here again, and some more cards going into that powerful hand, increasing the potential damage output of the Alakazam. Those cards will go to hand. We are going to draw some cards before We go back into the deck here, the benching of that Dunsparce onto the bench with 70 HP, attachment of a Legacy Energy to the Pheasantipity, essentially making it a 1 prize board state. Should that Fez be knocked out by damage, it would give up 1 less prize, as that's what the Legacy Energy A-Spec does. Seems to be the A-Spec of choice here. Looked like we did take 2 prizes, though there was a Lillie's Pearl attached to that Clefairy. It did look like it got kind of tucked up under the card there, potentially missed by our players. We'll see the draw for the turn, the errand run, drawing of 2 cards, rebumping the stadium with the Area 0 underdepths. We are flipping in and out of our different arenas here. The benching of a Teal Mask Ogerpon onto our player 1's bench. Looks like considering a Crispin as our supporter for the turn. We'll see a Teal Dance. Try to look at some more resources, see if we can see a different supporter for the turn. Do see a Judge, a hand disruption card in the format, particularly good against this Alakazam deck, as it will limit that large hand size and then back down their damage, though there is lots of resources to potentially draw cards on the battlefield through evolution or through the utilization of that runaway draw from the Dunsparce. We do see the fetching out of a Lillie's Clefairy off that telepathic energy being attached to the Lillie's Clefairy EX on the bench. It's finding its way to the bench, just 5 Pokemon on the bench, though we do have the expanded bench due to that Area 0 underdepths. Not going to be as necessary as the Pokemon in this Alakazam deck. Do not see the large HP that exists throughout the format as seen on cards like Mega Kangaskhan or Dragapult or Garchomp with a Cynthia's Power Weight attached. A lot of times those large damage numbers can be tougher for our Alakazam players to hit, but both players going down to 4 cards here off the Judge, shuffling their hands into the deck and looking at 4 cards here. See what the 4 cards are that are available to us. We've utilized our Teal Dances and our errand running, so hopefully just looking for a supporter for next turn to get back out of this. We do see a Meowth EX in the hand. We do see an energy switch to essentially move around some of that energy, set up maybe another Lillie's Clefairy EX and for an attacker in the following turn. Does look like we are going to see the utilization of another energy switch, doing just that, moving that energy off the Teal Mask Ogerpon onto Lillie's Clefairy, the attachment of a Lillie's Pearl onto that Lillie's Clefairy EX in the active, and a Full Moon Rondo knocking out that Alakazam, a prize being taken by our player 1, who is now down to just 4 prize cards. See the promotion of a Dunsparce EX, or Dunsparce, not an EX, the regular Dunsparce, with that runaway draw ability, unlikely to be in that active position for very long. The evolution of a Kadabra on the bench, Psychic Draw, drawing 2 cards. Utilization of a Sacred Ash, the ability to shuffle up to 5 Pokemon from the discard pile into the deck. Looks like at least 1 Alakazam line potentially making his way back into the deck, and a Hilda to go search out that Alakazam that was shuffled back in off the Sacred Ash, and the finding of an Energy Hilda, a supporter card, allowing for the searching up of an evolution Pokemon and an energy card from the deck. So a telepathic energy, looking like the energy of choice here, potentially going to find its way onto one of those Kadabras, and start searching out of some more psychic Pokemon onto the bench. We will see the utilization of runaway draw here, drawing 3 cards and shuffling that to Dunsparce into the deck, just signifying on the bench there that that Kadabra came into play this turn, so we don't evolve a Pokemon that is not supposed to be, unless there is a unique stadium or effect in play. Pokemon do usually only evolve once per turn. You can skip stages, sometimes with the utilization of rare candy, but not going to be a factor in this turn. See the attachment of the telepathic energy, going and fetching an Abra out of the deck, and the evolution into Alakazam in the active. Psychic Draw, drawing 3 cards, utilizing Flip the Script as there was a knockout taken in the previous turn, drawing 3 more cards, using Pokepad here to go into the deck to find a resource, the establishment of that Dunsparce last turn does allow for the switching out of a Dunsparce into the hand, and then evolving that Dunsparce on the bench. A benching of a Genesect with that Ace Nullifier ability, and the attachment of a handheld fan. The Genesect, as long as there is a tool attached, it turns off Apex. Looks like a powerful hand being damage counters, something that I had missed earlier. Lillie's Clefairy isn't being knocked out by damage from the attacks, being knocked out by the placement of damage counters, which is what is nullifying that Lillie's Pearl and allowing our player to be taking 2 prize cards. That's why he read it earlier. Great player to be able to realize what is going to affect and not affect his attacks. But Alakazam does place damage counters equal to 20 times the number of cards in your hand. Maybe a plus on that one, but it is going to be damage counters, which is why it interacts interestingly with different things like mist energies, as well as some effects in the TCG, like Team Rocket's Articuno, but it also uniquely makes it so those Lillie's Pearls and things like Legacy Energy do not activate in the same way. We'll see the utilization of Run Errand by our player 1, and the use of a Crispin as the supporter for turn, switching out 2 energy cards from the deck and placing one onto a Pokemon, accelerating a Psychic Energy onto Lillie's Clefairy, EX on the bench, and a Grass to the hand. Utilization of Teal Dance, attaching a Grass Energy to that Teal Mask Pokemon on the bench, and the drawing of a card. To the promotion of a Lillie's Clefairy and a Full Moon Rondo, taking a knockout on that Alakazam. The promotion of a Kadabra from our player 2. The play of an Alakazam from the hand, Psychic Draw, drawing 3 more cards to the hand. The attachment of a Telepathic Energy, and a big knockout with that powerful hand ability. Thank you so much for watching, players. We'll catch you next time.